attacking our news organization.
Not you.
Can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give us a
is
chance
terrible.
to ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir.
And the terms were laid out. I wrote about that in...
You called it the
I
gold
wrote
standard.
Well, I hope...
You called it the gold standard of trade deals.
And Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. A string of recent aviation disasters and close calls is testing the public's confidence in air travel.
Hillary Clinton just experienced the most spectacular political backfire in modern history. What started as her calculated attack on Trump's aviation record triggered a chain reaction that exposed years of corruption within the Democratic machine. In just 72 hours, Clinton went from confident attacker to desperate defender as Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy demolished her claims with cold, hard facts. Now the entire Democratic war room is scrambling as media stocks plummet and their political shield crumbles before our eyes. What really happened behind the scenes?
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
go ahead.
Can you say
She's asking a question. Don't
Mr.
be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Even a time when he didn't get an Emmy for his TV program 3 years in a row, and he started tweeting that the Emmys were rigged against him.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. What if a single tweet could destroy a political dynasty? That's exactly what happened when Hillary Clinton decided to launch what she thought was a perfect attack on Trump's aviation record. It was 6:43 in the morning when Clinton hit send on a tweet that would set off a chain reaction nobody saw coming. In that early morning tweet, Clinton claimed that Trump's FAA policies had directly led to fatal crashes, breaking what she called 16 years of perfect aviation safety.
I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is. But he never apologizes for anything to anyone.
Said it's the finest deal you've ever seen.
No.
And then you heard what I said about it, and all of a sudden you were against it.
Well, Donald, I know you live in your own reality.
The message was clearly crafted to deliver maximum damage, suggesting that American lives were being lost in the skies because of Trump's leadership. Within just 90 minutes, CNN was running breaking news alerts. By 9 a.m., MSNBC had assembled a panel of aviation experts discussing the dangerous impact of Trump's deregulation. Liberal Twitter exploded with hashtags like #Trump air disaster and #deadly deregulation. The Democratic war room thought they'd struck gold, finally finding the perfect weapon against Trump that would stick. Behind closed doors, the celebration was already underway. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gathered in Pelosi's office, champagne glasses literally clinking as they plotted how to milk this aviation scandal for weeks. "This is it," Schumer reportedly said. "This is what brings him down for good." One Democratic strategist later revealed they had already drafted statements for every major Democratic figure to release throughout the day, each hitting a different angle of the same aviation safety narrative. They even prepared graphics showing airline crash statistics with Trump's face superimposed over them. The liberal media machine went into overdrive, amplifying Clinton's claims without a single fact check. Headlines like "Trump's deregulation kills Americans in the sky" and "Blood on his hands. How Trump made flying deadly again" began appearing across major news sites. One cable news Chiron simply read, "How many more must die?"
Be the secretary of, if not the president, would be transportation.
Oh, wow.
So again, we build things, we make sure people's lives are better.
That was false and fake and never happened, got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing...
By noon, the narrative had completely hardened. Trump was being portrayed as personally responsible for airline deaths, while Democrats positioned themselves as the party of safety and responsibility. News anchors were asking guests if Trump should be held criminally liable for the crashes. It seemed like the perfect political hit job, until something unexpected happened. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy's response came with shocking speed and precision. While most administration officials would have taken days to formulate a careful response, Duffy was ready within hours, and he didn't just issue a standard denial, he came armed with receipts. In a devastating press conference carried live across all networks, Duffy systematically dismantled Clinton's claims point by point. He presented documented evidence showing the FAA administrator Clinton referenced had actually resigned during the previous administration. He displayed internal memos proving the air traffic controller policies Clinton blamed for crashes had never been implemented. Most damaging of all, Duffy revealed revealed the statistics Clinton cited about 16 years of safety were completely fabricated. He displayed the actual FAA safety records showing that the safety trends under Trump had actually improved compared to previous years. These aren't alternative facts, Duffy said calmly, looking directly into the cameras. These are the actual records of the Federal Aviation Administration.
You know what? It's no different than this. She's telling us how to fight ISIS. Just go to her website. She tells you how to fight ISIS on her website.
More quickly, they get home to their families more quickly. So, yeah, this is I think one of the greatest places I could be in government.
As Duffy methodically exposed each falsehood, the Democratic war room descended into panic. Text messages later leaked from this meeting show frantic exchanges. Is this confirmed? Can we spin this? Who vetted her tweet? The media outlets that had spent the morning amplifying Clinton's claims now faced an uncomfortable choice. Admit they had pushed false information without verification, or ignore Duffy's evidence. Most chose an awkward middle path, burying Duffy's response deep in their coverage while quietly updating their earlier stories. Hillary's calculated attack had completely backfired. What Democrats thought was their perfect weapon against Trump had transformed into a devastating liability in just hours. Clinton herself disappeared from public view, canceling 3 scheduled appearances as her team scrambled to find a response. While Clinton hid from the public fallout, nervous phone calls were flying between network headquarters and Democratic operatives. They had good reason to panic. The paper trail Duffy was about to uncover wouldn't just expose Clinton's lies, it would reveal how supposedly objective news organizations had actively participated in crafting the entire aviation narrative before Clinton ever hit tweet. Transportation Secretary Duffy wasn't satisfied with simply correcting Clinton's aviation claims. His team dug deeper, following a disturbing pattern they'd noticed in the media's suspiciously synchronized response.
Those things to those women because they were not attractive enough for
I did
them
not say
to be
that.
assaulted.
I did not say that.
In fact, he owes our country an apology, and he needs to take responsibility for his actions and his words.
What they discovered sent shockwaves through Washington. Internal communications proving Clinton's attack wasn't spontaneous at all, but a carefully coordinated strike involving major news executives. The smoking gun emerged when Fox News obtained a bombshell cache of leaked emails. These messages revealed CNN producers had prepared graphics and expert panels mere minutes after Clinton's tweet went public. But here's the real shocker. These weren't rushed productions thrown together by talented staff. The elaborate visual packages and pre-booked panels were ready to deploy instantly, almost as if they knew exactly what was coming and when. How did these networks assemble such comprehensive coverage in minutes? Asked independent journalists who started noticing the suspicious timing. The answer became obvious as Duffy's investigation progressed. They couldn't have. This level of preparation required advanced knowledge and planning. The web of deception grew even more tangled when investigators identified the so-called aviation experts paraded across multiple networks. These weren't independent analysts offering objective assessments. They were political operatives with direct financial ties to Democratic political action committees, connections conveniently never disclosed to viewers who assumed they were watching impartial specialists. But the coordination didn't stop there. Duffy's team made perhaps their most damning discovery when they uncovered identical talking points distributed to multiple networks. Viewers watching different channels heard anchors and commentators using the exact same phrases and arguments. A statistical impossibility if each network was conducting independent reporting. These weren't journalists following a story, they were actors reading from a shared script. The media's complicity went beyond just amplifying Clinton's message. Several FAA officials later reported they had contacted major networks offering to provide factual corrections to Clinton's claims, only to be systematically shut out. Network producers deliberately suppressed counter evidence that would have undermined the narrative, choosing partisan messaging over journalistic integrity. As public skepticism grew, the dam finally broke. A former CNN producer, unable to stomach the deception any longer, came forward with the ultimate confirmation. The aviation hit piece hadn't been a response to Clinton's tweet at all. It had been planned days in advance as part of a coordinated campaign between Democratic strategists and network executives.
I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up,
You want to
Well,
talk
but
about
there
that?
is no, but there is no evidence. But there is a lot of evidence about the very good work.
The mainstream media weren't just reporting Clinton's aviation claims, stated one congressional investigator reviewing Duffy's findings. They were active participants in orchestrating the entire smear campaign from the beginning. The revelation sent Clinton's remaining defenders scrambling. Democratic operatives who had celebrated the aviation attack now frantically deleted emails and scrubbed servers. Network executives who had once smugly pushed the false narrative now faced uncomfortable questions from their own journalists who'd been kept in the dark about the coordination. What Americans witnessed wasn't journalism, it was political theater disguised as news. The Fourth Estate, supposed guardian of democracy, had transformed into a propaganda arm executing a predetermined political hit job. Clinton's tweet wasn't the beginning of the story, it was merely the public trigger for a plan already in motion. Behind Clinton's carefully orchestrated media attack lurked a financial scandal so massive it would make Watergate look like a parking ticket. While the public fixated on the aviation controversy, Secretary Duffy's investigation uncovered something far more sinister, a money trail that explained everything. As Duffy dug deeper, he discovered something that couldn't be coincidental. Clinton's tweet had been fired off precisely 3 days before the Department of Government Efficiency was scheduled to release findings from their investigation into suspicious FAA contracts. This wasn't just about attacking Trump, it was about creating a smokescreen to hide billions of dollars. The bombshell came when investigators uncovered documents revealing an elaborate web of government funding that flowed directly into the bank accounts of the same media outlets pushing Clinton's false narrative. This wasn't conspiracy theory, this was follow the money journalism at its finest.
Asking for are the 33,000 emails that you deleted and that you acid washed.
ISIS.
No, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do.
No, we're not.
See, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do.
These weren't legitimate advertising contracts, explained a DOJ investigator who requested anonymity. They were effectively payoffs disguised as consulting fees in educational initiatives with no deliverables. The scheme was ingenious in its simplicity. Taxpayer dollars were being laundered through government agencies directly to media companies willing to carry water for Democratic politicians.
Pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's absolutely
She doesn't like Putin because Putin has outsmarted her at every step of the way. Excuse me.
And so please
You
go
didn't delete him?
Allow her to respond, please.
personal emails, not official.
33,000?
Well, we turned over 35,000.
The paper trail was absolutely staggering. Documentation showed $8 million flowing to Politico alone, with millions more directed to the New York Times, all carefully shuffled through intermediate organizations with innocent-sounding names like Media Education Foundation and Digital Democracy Initiative. These shell organizations had one purpose: to obscure the direct financial relationship between government agencies and news outlets. In what became the most shocking moment of the entire scandal, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held an unprecedented press conference where she didn't just describe the corruption, she displayed the actual contracts on screen for all Americans to see. There in black and white was proof that taxpayer dollars had been flowing from government agencies directly into the coffers of media companies for years. What you're looking at, Leavitt explained while pointing to contracts projected on the screen behind her, is the receipt for propaganda paid with your tax dollars.
Home to your family. And so if we're hiring for other reasons, I don't care what the reason, it has no place here.
I know that you,
No, not you. Not
Can
you.
you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give
is
us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir.
Press room fell into stunned silence as journalists realized many of their own employers were implicated in the documents being displayed. The real motivation behind Clinton's desperate aviation attack suddenly crystallized for everyone. DOJ investigators had been closing in on how the FAA had been transformed into a slush fund for media payoffs. For years, millions in aviation-related educational contracts had been awarded to news organizations without any actual educational materials ever being produced. The financial markets reacted with brutal efficiency once the scope of the scandal became clear. CNN parent company stock plummeted 15% overnight. The New York Times saw its value cut in half within a week. Investors fled media companies as questions arose about how much of their revenue had been artificially inflated through government contracts that might now disappear.
Let me just explain.
All of her donors,
most of her donors,
Mr. Trump,
have done the same thing as I did.
Okay.
And you know what she should have done?
Folks, we heard
and
this.
You know, Hillary. And then the 2 boxes of emails and other things last week that were taken from an office and are now missing.
Industry analysts began questioning whether some media companies could even survive without this hidden pipeline of government funding. One financial expert noted, when you remove tens of millions in guaranteed government contracts that these companies never disclose to shareholders, their entire business model falls apart. The most damning revelation came when investigators connected the timeline of aggressive political coverage directly to contract renewal dates. In multiple cases, networks had aired their most vicious attacks on Republican figures in the weeks immediately preceding major contract renewals with government agencies. What Americans witnessed wasn't just coordination between Clinton and friendly media. It was a fully monetized propaganda operation where taxpayers unknowingly funded political messaging disguised as news. The contracts revealed a sophisticated system for laundering political influence through government agencies to media companies willing to carry the preferred narrative.
No wonder you've been fighting. No wonder you've been fighting ISIS your entire adult life.
They had the infrastructure bill. They spent a lot of money, and I've come in and wondered, what did you do with the cash? Again, a lot of priorities.
As the scandal expanded, attention turned to who had authorized these contracts in the first place. Email chains showed high-ranking officials across multiple agencies signing off on questionable media payments, often with explicit messaging directives attached. These weren't normal government contracts. They were content purchase agreements with political strings attached. What we've witnessed isn't just another political scandal, it's a complete unraveling of trust in our institutions. The public's reaction has been nothing short of seismic. As one pollster put it, we've never seen such a dramatic shift in public sentiment toward media organizations in such a short time. Media executives who once wielded incredible power are now frantically issuing denials. Democratic strategists are nowhere to be found. The entire political landscape has transformed overnight as Americans process the shocking reality of what's been happening right under their noses. The most fascinating part, this isn't just about Hillary anymore. It's about whether any politician can ever again rely on friendly media coverage to shield them from accountability. The public is demanding transparency like never before, and the old playbook of media manipulation simply won't work anymore. Will the political media complex survive this earthquake? That's the million-dollar question. But one thing's certain, Americans aren't going back to being in the dark. The curtain has been pulled back, and there's no putting it back. Share your thoughts below on whether you think this marks the end of an era in American politics.